I'm Scott. I do want to show you my pictures. This is my wife. I've been married for 20 years, and my twin boys are seniors this year, so I'm excited for that. I have a little girl who's 9, who's turning 10. When we got married and had our twins, we didn't even want to touch each other for a long time before we had another baby. So, and then you can see my best friend, my doggo on the bottom corner. His name is Axel. My family and I love to do stuff outside. We're campers. This is a picture of my daughter and I doing snowshoeing. And this is our other little, she's kind of more of a rat than she's a dog, but her name is Misty. She can't really be outside. She has to have a sweater because she's so fragile. I love to hike. I don't know if I said that already, but this is my backpacking trip this year up in the Grand Tetons. And that's the back of the Grand. You can see one of the pictures where I camped, the back of the Grand Teton. Anyway, I did it with my brother-in-laws. And I do that because I want you to understand that me and my teachers are all humans, and we love this job because we have as much flexibility as you do. We do want to be there to support you in your flexibility. That's the beauty of our school, is that they aren't forced into a seat time sitting in a room. But I think over time, you'll see how great that is. We really work really hard. Our real focus is 4 things. We want to equip your student to live well, learn well, earn well, and serve well. And so we do everything we can by creating frameworks and experiences to make that happen. We really focus on all the skills that are around that so that they can have success in their own lives. We do it through customized learning, which means that it's mastery-based, student-driven, and teacher-supported. Mastery-based, we'll talk more about that. Student-driven means that your student really ends up being in charge of what they're learning, and you get to be there with them, helping decide how they learn it. We just try and meet the state standards. Teacher-supported is that students all have mentor teachers and content teachers like a regular high school, but we really focus on the mentor. And that's, if you're coming from Overture, that feels like your actual teacher, more of an elementary model where there's one teacher that's you're going to be more connected with than the content teachers. So there's 5 things you need to know. The communication in our school is like the key. Students need to check their email all the time. I send out about 2 messages to parents a month, but students will get a newsletter every single week from their teachers. And it almost always will include information that's helpful to them. And I'm going to show you where to find some of that so you can see it too. It's at our website, srohs.snakeriver.org. We have, I'm going to go first to the newsletter because that's what I was just talking about. But you can click on the side here. And newsletter will be here. It isn't yet because we hadn't activated, but you can almost find everything else under quick links. So this is the student quick links, and there's a newsletter link. This is so you can see it. It will be emailed to the students. My computer's getting tired. And that is not what I clicked on. Nor, that's weird. Newsletters. Click on newsletters. Okay, there we go. So this is this week's newsletter, and it kind of just gives information about the school. It also will give, sometimes I do a podcast or a message. There's a weekly check-in survey, and I'll talk about that in a second. Talking about our national parks trip. Right here, there's orientation week schedule. So that's just live stuff. And then it's talking about 6 new things we've got going on this year. Good clubs, senior information, parent orientation meetings, which you're at. So the newsletter covers a lot of information that students can look at. And it comes to them in their email every Monday morning. Or it could come on Friday afternoon too. But most of the time it's going to be Monday morning. And they'll also on the webpage, like I said, there will be a link directly to each one of those. Another thing we expect make it easy for you is if you just go to our website and hit contact us, you can see most of us will have our picture, our job, our email address, our phone number, and an appointment calendar. So I'm going to just give you an example with mine, that if you need to meet with me individually, it'll bring up my calendar and you can see the days that I'm available for meetings. And you can just pick a time, click on it, add your name and email address. Boom, you got an appointment with me. It'll set it on my calendar. And students can do this for themselves, for all their content teachers, or for their mentor. So for example, if they needed to have a meeting with our social studies teacher, they would just click on his appointment calendar. I know his isn't set up, so I'm not going to show it to you. But I know Mrs. Jayos is set up, who's our English teacher, one of our English teachers. And you can see that she has time available on Wednesday and Thursday this week. And then next week, it's always on, after this week, it's probably mostly on Tuesdays. So if the student needing help, they can automatically just schedule themselves an appointment. Or if those dates or times don't work, then a student could actually email Mrs. Jo or give her a call. And they're pretty quick to respond to those things. We also use, I'm trying to get back to where I was, bands. We have a parent band group, which was in one of your emails that you can join. It's going to be just communication about stuff that's going on with the school, if there's certain announcements. Students use Google Classroom, and that means it's kind of our portal. If you're from Overture, it's like the Overture portal, but it's much more focused and doesn't have all of the bells and whistles. It'll show students classes. Homebase, all new students, so all freshmen and anybody that's brand new to our school, we ask them to take Homebase for the first full year they're with us. Those are meetings that are on Monday or Tuesday, and they're the only synchronous thing that are required in our school. And I'm going to show you what that looks like, what their schedule looks like, so you can get an idea. But we let students choose who their mentor is. This is slowly loading. So the Homebase schedule looks like this for this year. On Monday, it looks like there's 3 different times that are available. And then on Tuesday, there's 4 different times. So here's what's different this year is that if a student, so for example, Mahanrai picked, I think he has Mrs. Otterstein. I might be wrong. But then this year he finds out that it doesn't work for him. The schedule, her day for Homebase doesn't work. He can attend any scheduled Homebase because it's the same lesson, and still keep Mrs. Otterstein as his orientation, not his orientation, his advisor, kind of his mentor. Does that kind of make sense? Because we want to accommodate all sorts of schedules, and we know that our teachers can't be available 10 times a day.
So he needs to do Homebase again this year, even though he did last year?
He doesn't need to do it again this year if he doesn't want to. A lot of students choose to do it, but it is 2 elective credits. So some kids find it's an easy 2 credits. You show up, you have conversation with other kids. So that's the cool thing about it. It's a bunch of kids that are his age talking about topics that matter. For example, like character development stuff, competencies, real world skills like balancing your budget, literacy online. Those things are things that classes don't necessarily teach, but they're really things that are good to learn together. So it's well worth the credit. Does anybody have any question about Homebase or real quick? Okay. So the only other thing I wanted to say there is we don't take attendance daily, and we don't make you create a schedule for us saying when your student's working, which is what a lot of online programs do. What we do is we require students to either attend Homebase or complete a weekly check-in. So the weekly check-in is just a quick survey that says what the student's been working on, how they're feeling about their work, and if they need help. Sometimes it'll connect back to that competency from the Homebase as well. So that's how we keep attendance in our school. So if a student attends Homebase or does the weekly check-in, then that will count, or they're active in their classroom, it'll count towards their attendance. Second thing we really think is important for parents to know is that you have to really support your students' learning plan. And this is where the 4-year learning plan comes together. Students make this in orientation with their mentor. We have 3 pathways. Some students are on their way to get an associate's degree. That would be like 40, 80 credits. That's a lot, but that includes dual credits. They could be working on getting a certificate, like a welding certificate, or they could be working just to graduate on time, which is most students. If they're just trying to graduate on time, it's 46 credits to get a diploma. They have to be in certain places. And this is kind of the chart. Students work on it or created it. If they're returning students, they probably already have a 4-year plan created. Just to know that this year the state changed that students don't have to take math in their senior year. So a lot of kids are happy about that. And that they still have to have 6 credits, but they don't have to take them in their senior year. Then the other thing is not social studies, science. Used to be that you had to have 4 lab credits. Now you only have to have 2. Our senior project counts as one of the electives. Any questions about graduation requirements? there'll be lots of other information on this, and I cover some of this in some of the orientation emails I've sent. So what I wanted to kind of talk about is that each of our courses is all, if it's a Snake River course and not like an IDLA course, then it's a mastery-based course. And that means that there will be 4 topics. Every class will have 4 topics. And so we can calculate if a student needs 12 credits to graduate, work towards graduation every year, that means they're going to have 48 topics that they turn in. I mean, it's just a simple math problem from there. I can go 1 out of 48. That's a 2.5% completion rate in our school. And so you can see over here that we say on September 12th, to keep a student on track, they need to have completed 5% of their work. That means turned in 5% and completed orientation. And we kind of break it down based on the pathway they're working on. That also connects to our budgets, which we talked about a minute ago, but I'll go back to at the very end, okay? We just wanted to make it really simple for students. They create this plan, both of these pieces, in their orientation and with their mentor, and they can share them with you. The next thing that is our school is mastery. So this is somewhat different than any other school that I know of. Our mastery model says that every course has those 4 topics, and you can see some examples on the left side there, creative writing or Spanish. They just have 4 main topics, and usually under the topic it says something specific about being successful, proving that you successfully understand that. Those things are worth talking to your mentor or a content teacher about if you're kind of confused about them. And you can kind of match up whatever you're using to learn with those things. If you have deeper questions about that, I can go into that in specific ways. The next thing is the mastery, the model of our school. And this is somewhat different, especially from Overture, is that our students achieve mastery by turning an artifact of learning in that's supposed to be meeting those topics. So you turn something in geometry that's about triangles, and you could turn in a picture of something you've done, which shows what you have learned, but it doesn't show why you know it works or how you do it or how you could use it in the real world. So our teachers will provide feedback on that, and then the student is asked to fix that area of work or dig a little deeper in the way they ask. And I'm going to talk about those things in a minute. But our school is really fueled on feedback, and that's how we achieve mastery. So feedback kind of looks different in our school too, which is the 4th thing that we really, or 5th thing, is that right? 4th thing that makes students successful in our school. So if I tell you this is something somebody turned in, you can see the worksheet there on the left-hand side. Do you think a teacher can tell if a student mastered the math material there? It's just tiny in some of your screens, but is it possible for a teacher to say, yeah, you mastered that content with what's on that page? Any ideas? Nobody wants to talk. It's very little information on here, right? And so you can see on the right-hand side that Mrs. Whitworth said, this first page looks great, good start, but you need to finish the next 3 pages in this packet so you can achieve the mastery. This student never did it, and so never got credit for this work. And you can see the grade here, it's a 2.25. So in PowerSchool, which is the way you can see how your student's doing, if there's a grade that's not a 4, then it's not done. It's not mastered. It just means it's been turned in. See how that's slightly different than, say, other programs? We don't give letter grades. We give an M or a not done, basically. Oh, are you like at the hospital or something? You're scaring me. Oh, ATM machine, Marcella.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. The beep, I'm like, either that's your heart rate or we got something else going on. I don't know. So you can see on this picture, this is another example of feedback that this student turned in a paper about some economic influences of the war. And Mr. Clayson starts to respond. He highlights a specific spot and it says, I like this statement. And then it got kind of long. So on the right-hand side is what he totally wrote. And it's a lot there, but he pointed out something that the student did. And then he gave a little bit of teaching and he wrote, What made the value increase so much? So he asked a question that the student needed to respond to. And then he gave a little more instruction and then another question. So to get mastery on this, the student needed to answer the questions. And this student got in a Zoom meeting like this and kind of explained their thinking. So then the student got mastery. Here's another example. This thing in the middle, the blue part, is the only thing the student turned in where it says flashback and foreshadowing. And I don't even have to know much about the topic, but I know that that is not that student's work. I know that the topic probably said something about flashback and foreshadow. They typed that into Google and they found that graphic and then they inserted it and turned it in. And that's all that was turned in at first. So on the right-hand side, you can see that Mrs. J.O. says, such a good definition. And then she asks, have you read a book that you could say that this, you applied this knowledge to, that you could see this happen in? Then eventually the student wrote the stuff around the edges. So eventually this became mastery over that interaction. What questions do you have about feedback? Nobody's asking any, so I'm going to just pretend you are. Okay. So the last thing that we really think is important for students is that they can use their budget. And the learning budget looks a little bit like this. And as I explained earlier to some of you that we give $1,200 over the course of the year. Basically, it's in $400 chunks, but the first $400 is broken into two parts. So if students are completed with that 5%, like we showed you right here, that first 5% and completed with orientation by the 12th, then they'll get that first $250 added to their budget. And it looks like this. You can see the first $250 right here that I'm highlighting was added to the budget. And this student used it to pay for a Chromebook. So that then showed a balance left of $200 in the student's account. Now, in October, if the student's on pace, then they add the additional $150 to the budget. We also give badges, and we have another Panther Coin thing, but that's mostly for students. To get reimbursements, we'll share this page with you for your specific student, and you'll just click on the link there that says Learning Budget. And it gives you a place to submit reimbursements. And this is what we were talking about earlier. We like all of our reimbursements to be connected directly to a class. So if a student's using the funds to pay for ski passes, they have to be in PE for us to reimburse it. And that has to be the focus of their PE class. If they're taking guitar lessons, we love to pay for that. But they need to be in a music instrumental class where they're meeting specific criteria towards graduation. The other things that might be a little bit of an exception is if like you're paying for internet or having to buy a computer, that's something different. And we would you just fill it out, this form, and attach the receipt when you've paid for it. Now, if by chance it's something that you can get on Amazon and you don't want to have to purchase it and then get reimbursed, we can do the purchase for you and get it tax-free. So that's a good way to go. But you just create a wish list in Amazon and you send it to the mentor, and then the mentor sends it to me, and we work out the paperwork on the other side. That leads me to the other thing I wanted to share with you is that our school, if you go to our website, there's a brand new link up here that talks about our national parks trip. So we're letting students go on a national parks trip this year with World Strides Travel. And they'll be traveling to some southern states and national parks. And the information's all here. It's 5 days and 5 nights. And they're going to be going to the Grand Canyon, Valley of Fire State Park, Bryce Canyon, Coral Pink Sand Dunes, the Hoover Dam, Zion Park. And you can use learning budgets towards that. It is $1,500, but there's some discounts going on right now, which I'm going to send an email tomorrow talking about when one of the discounts goes away. But then we also have some scholarships, and we have some students creating some fundraisers. So the ability of students to use their learning funds towards this trip is good because the student then gets 2 science credits from our school and 3 college science credits paid for on the trip. So it's well worth the funds. Okay, that's all the spiel. And I'm going to hit pause real quick. And then if you guys have some specific questions about your kiddos, we'd love to just